a little surprised that we didn't have a bigger turnout. I mean, we pulled out all the stops and went with crawfish. But I think we did get a few more.
We enjoyed it.
It was good.
We'll take them home for you.
Please do.
Would you like to have some?
The other reason that we're here is we wanted to take this opportunity to do our standard update report, but a little less formally. And so rather than getting over there in that trailer, I thought I'd just stand up here, give you some of the highlights, and then give you all an opportunity to ask any questions. We still have John and we have DNR folks here. They're available for questions too, I'm sure. So if you would indulge me for just a minute, I just want to tell you a few things, and we can get on our second or third round of crawfish. First of all, again, I think we're making good progress on the gas production. We're still seeing declining pressures on flowing wells. We've seen downward trends on wellhead rates, gas pressures, and rates. But most notably, the best producing relief well went dead. Graveyard dead. Even to the extent that we pulled water out of it, couldn't get it to bring gas back up. And this well is significant because it was one of the very first ones that we put in. In fact, it's OGRW1, and it's probably one of the closer ones to the sinkhole. And for the longest time, until we put wells over in this area, it was the biggest producer. And we all agree. We've been talking close to DNR and CB&I's experts, and we all agree that it appears to have depleted. The reason that's significant is because, like I said, it was one of the best producers, but also because of its proximity to the sinkhole, we think that if the sinkhole was still recharging gas, that well would probably have continued. So it's another indicator that there's not a massive volume of recharge taking place. I would never say that there's not any recharge, but we don't have any indication that there's a massive volume of gas that's still coming up out of deeper sediments. So that was a good positive development. To date, we've produced 65 million cubic feet of gas, and we are currently venting, I'm sorry, I said that backwards, 28.5 million standard cubic gas produced, and on a daily basis, we're averaging about 60 to 65,000 standard cubic feet of gas. Okay? Now, what I just described are these observations and trends. I think you'll all be happy to know that this is not an independent opinion or assessment by Texas Brine. We are all in agreement. DNR, CB&I, and Texas Brine have been in discussions about these trends, and our impression, our interpretation from these other agencies is that they are in agreement. So it's not as though I'm standing up there saying the problem's going away, and there are other people that may not necessarily agree with it. I think we're all starting to come to agreement that we're accomplishing our objectives and we're making this problem go away. I want to say that. And y'all are welcome to oppose that, but that was the clear impression we got from Dr. Hecox and others in recent discussions. Okay. Another highlight, the New South berm is complete. We have it completely finished out. We put the last little bit of limestone cover on the top of it, and we put some riprap down on the portion that's near the bayou to protect it, keep it from getting washed out. And so we're done with that, and it looks good. I wish I could take y'all down there on a tour. It's beautiful country, but that won't be allowed for some time. As I mentioned, the testing of the ORWs, most all of them, if not all of them, that are outside the community have been tested where we cool water down, and in most cases all the way down to the stream that was placed adjacent to the gas zone. Only a handful of them showed any sign of improvement from that process. So what this tells us is that for all those that we've tested, the only ones that have any upside or any incremental capacity to produce more gas are those that are currently producing. Another way to describe that is those wells that aren't producing anymore are done. So that's a positive development. Those that are continuing to produce, we don't see a whole lot of need to pull water out of them to make them produce any harder. We suspect that they will eventually play out too. So that's a good development. I know there have been a number of folks that have been concerned about pulling water, especially around the homes, and it's looking more and more like that's not going to be a necessity. We just don't see that happening. And we still are committed to not doing that because we don't want to take that risk. Okay? We've also begun the process of staking out certain relief wells that we're going to begin plugging. And I think that will be considered a positive development because you'll start to see less and less of us, less and less of these wells with fences around them, and things returning back to normal. Certainly for the wells that are depleted and not making any more gas, there's no need for them to remain in place. So we're going to start a process of plugging those out. Okay? We have a simultaneous process where we're plugging some wells. We're going to be coming back in and installing additional pressure or passive vent wells. These are the shallow, mainly just a piece of PVC down into a 30 or 40 foot depth that will tap into these little sands that are feeding some of these major bubble sites. We've identified about 6 of them that are in the upper category, the upper producers, and we've got RESPEC developing a plan. They're going to come in and install what they call passive vent wells, which are just like what we did over here at bubble site 56 on the other side of the grid. Now, what we believe the bubble site represents is really it's an inefficient process for gas to relieve from the shallow sediment. By sticking a piece of pipe in the ground and tapping into the source, we remove the obstacles that block that flow, and we can accelerate the relief of that gas. So, 2 things it will accomplish: it'll make the bubbles go away for the most part in the areas where they're big and very obvious. Secondly, it will speed up the process for the gas to vent off. Our belief is that eventually, over time, all of the bubbling will stop. It may take a long time because it is an inefficient process. But what we're going to do is tap into those larger bubble sites and make them more efficient. And that's where we'll be stabbing pipe into the ground. Like I said, we've got about 5 or 6 of those sites designated where we'll be putting those wells in. So you'll see a little bit of activity on that, but virtually nothing going on in the community. These will all be down south, Tricia Canal, the pipeline crossing, and in a few other places. But I think as far as north of 70, we're good up there. There's no indication of any additional bubbling gas up there, so we're good in that area. The final thing I wanted to tell you, and this is going to be a little bit disappointing for some of you, I know, because when it came up in the past, when we first had to come down into Sportsman's and install wells, there was obviously a lot of concern about the intrusion. We need to come back, and we need to put 2 more passive vent wells along Sportsman. We've identified 2 sites, pressure monitor wells. We've identified 2 sites. One is going to be all the way down at the end, in the vacant lot that's just this side of the canal and the wastewater treatment plant. The other one is going to be 4A pump. Will, what's the 4A? Which is the second home over from the first one? Okay. The 4A property, and it will need to be in the front yard of the 4A property. That was another commitment that we made. We weren't going to put anything out in front because there was a lot of concern about the visual aspects of the relief well. This is going to be a very simple installation. It's not going to be your typical relief well. It'll be much smaller, and we're going to do everything we can to kind of keep it out of sight. But I think you'll be happy to learn that if we can get approval and we can get those installed, it will minimize the need for us to come back in and punch a whole bunch of CPT wells, which is what we were planning to do to check for gas depletion. So by meeting with DNR, we've worked out a process where by installing additional pressure monitor wells, we can minimize the need to come back in and punch a lot of CPT wells. So I hope you'll look at that as a positive development. Get back in there one time, we'll put 2 more wells down, plug some wells, take down fences, be done with those eventually, and then you'll never see us again. So that's our objectives. Unless you want to see us.
We like you. I don't have a problem.
That about sums it up. I told you it would be brief.
That last statement, was that a promise?
Tell us more about the 4A's front yard well.
The 4A's, the selection site for the pressure monitor wells is dependent on the geology and the mapping of the gas. And of course, when you're trying to measure pressure, you want to pick a spot that's optimal, where you know you've got the maximum amount of gas. And it just happens that the 4A's is one of those places. It meets our criteria. It's property that we own, and it's a home that will soon be empty. These wells, these pressure monitor wells, could be out here for a long time, maybe a decade, maybe longer.
Physically, what's it going to look like?
There's one right over here, is there not?
No. Not the pressure monitoring.
the
I mean,
nearest,
basically what I'm trying to get at is how low is the profile?
probably 3 feet. I'm guessing about 3 feet. I've looked at the design, and John and others are going to have a chance to look at the design and comment on it. We're going to do everything we can to keep it simple and out of sight. If we need to, we can put some shrubs around
Can
it.
you put, I was gonna suggest shrubbery
Yeah.
rather than fencing around it.
Yes. Yes.
But you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Disguise it so it doesn't look
Right. Because we made the commitment to stay away, and stay behind the homes or the fronts of the homes, and this is obviously a change from that. So we'll do whatever we can.
And it's kind of too bad, I don't know of any lot that has a smaller front yard than the 4H lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, this is all just kind of in discussion. That's a preliminary site. We might find that we can do something different. One of the other proposed locations was in your living room.
Yeah.
We didn't think you'd be real favorable.
We'll put a coffee table over there.
Coffee table. But folks, I know that sometimes I may seem a little overly optimistic. That's the only way that we can function is we try to muddle our way through this issue, try to keep a positive spin on it. I think there are others that by nature and by their designated role, they have to be pessimistic. They have to assume the worst case. But what I'm sensing now from discussions with all of the parties involved is that we're all starting to see things to kind of take turns toward the better. And that's encouraging to me. Should be encouraging to all of us. So I'm grateful for all of that. And like I said, if I could pick a time, a date where we might be able to say we're done. Of course, we're going to have to stay after the gas until it stops. We may never make all of it stop, but we all remember that there is natural gas that bubbles out here. So we can't make all of that go away. Certainly the aggressive bubble sites we're going to go after. We can't predict how long it's going to take for those to stop, but it could be months, could be years. But the bigger problem, the thick gas that is the target of the ORW wells, that problem is certainly going away. And again, I go back to the depletion of relief well number 1 over by the sinkhole. And if we can see the others, these big producers like 36 over here, 55 down here, if we can see those do the same thing, then we're all going to be able to say, okay, we got it.